Dear students, good morning. I think you have studied the previous topics. Yesterday we completed Latin American Revolution. We already given you 3 questions out of it. And I think you studied it. Today we are going to start Russian Revolution. I think you are very familiar with Russia. You have heard many times about Russia. 2 power blocks in the world, one America, another USSR. You heard about it. Now we are going to study about the Russian Revolution, one of the most important revolutions in the world. In the textbook, you have seen, the screen you can see, Maxim Gorky's The Mother, the novel written by Maxim Gorky, named The Mother. In this novel, a character speaks about the families or the workers of Russia. Just read that Maxim Gorky's The Mother. The dialogue of the one character. What you can understand out of it? You can see, you can understand the plight of workers of or farmers of Russia. This character reflects the ideas or the thoughts or the plight, sufferings of the workers or farmers of Russia. The main points we can see, the main demands of these farmers. We can see first one, abolish private property. They wanted to abolish private property. സ്വകാര്യ സ്വത്തവകാശം തുടച്ചു നീക്കണം, ഇല്ലാതാക്കണം. All should work. എല്ലാവരും ജോലി ചെയ്യണം. It was the demand of them. Thirdly, power should be in the hands of people. Country should be ruled by the people. They put forward many ideas, many demands through these words. Why did they put such demands? What was the reason for such demands? Why did the farmers of workers of Russia raise such demands in Russia? What was the circumstances of Russia? Let us examine. എന്തുകൊണ്ട് റഷ്യയിലെ തൊഴിലാളികൾ ഇത്തരമൊരു ആവശ്യമുന്നയിച്ചു? അവിടെയുള്ള കർഷകർ ഇത്തരമൊരു ആവശ്യമുന്നയിച്ചു? നമുക്കൊന്ന് പരിശോധിക്കാം. ഫസ്റ്റ് വൺ, the farmers of Russia and the workers of Russia, they led a tragic life under the autocratic rule of czars. You have heard about the czars. They were the rulers of Russia. They were autocrats. They exploited the people. They ruled the country as they liked. തങ്ങൾ തോന്നിയ വിധം ജനങ്ങളെ ചൂഷണം ചെയ്ത് ഭരണം നടത്തിയിരുന്ന സാർ ചക്രവർത്തിമാരുടെ ഭരണത്തിന് കീഴിൽ നമ്മുടെ ഫാമേഴ്സ് ആൻഡ് വർക്കേഴ്സ് ദേ ലെഡ് എ ട്രാജിക്കൽ ലൈഫ്. ദുരന്തപൂർണമായ ജീവിതമാണ് നയിച്ചത്. It was the first reason for the farmers of America, workers of America to raise such a demand The second one, the agricultural production of Russia was very low. Very low agricultural production. So they got only low income. They got only low income. The farmers of Russia got low income because their agricultural production was very low. But they had to pay huge amount of tax. വലിയ ടാക്സ് കൊടുക്കേണ്ടി വന്നു. ഒരു ഭാഗത്ത് വരുമാനം കുറവ്, മറുഭാഗത്താണെങ്കിലോ ഉയർന്ന ടാക്സ് കൊടുക്കേണ്ടി വന്നു. They had to pay a huge tax. വലിയ നികുതി കൊടുക്കേണ്ടി വന്നു. It was the second reason to rise such a demand. Third reason was that, Russia was abundant with natural resources. Russia had a lot of natural resources, abundant with natural resources. Though they were abundant with natural resources, we can see that industrial production was very poor in Russia. Industrial production was very poor. ധാരാളമായ വിഭവങ്ങളുള്ള രാജ്യമാണ്. പക്ഷേ അവിടെ വ്യാവസായിക ഉൽപ്പാദനം വളരെ കുറവാണ്. Almost all industries in Russia were controlled by foreigners. Almost all industries in Russia were controlled by foreigners. ഒട്ടുമിക്ക റഷ്യയിലെ വ്യവസായങ്ങളും നിയന്ത്രിച്ചിരുന്നത് വിദേശികളാണ്. Almost all industries in Russia. So it was the condition of Russia. The czars who ruled Russia exploited the people. They never thought about the plight of the people, the miseries of the people, farmers or workers. They led a luxurious life. So it was the plight of the people. We can see 3 points led the farmers and workers to raise such a demand. One, farmers, factory workers led a tragic life in the rule of czars. Low agricultural production that affected the income of the farmers and the workers. Thirdly, they had to pay huge tax. Last, though rich with natural resources, Russia had a low industrial production. Almost all industries in Russia were controlled by the foreigners. This is the circumstance which led the people of Russia, especially farmers and workers of Russia, to raise such a demand. What was the demand? Abolish private property. Everyone has to work. All people should work. Power should be in the hands of people. So from this we can understand, all power in the country was concentrated in the hands of czars. They ruled the country as they liked. Wealth was concentrated in the hands of what? A few rich people in the country. The farmers and workers had no wealth at all. They had no land at all. There was no property at all. Property, private property. So they demanded abolish private property. A few people worked in the country. So they demanded that all should work. So it was the condition of Russia. Many writers were there in Russia. You have heard about the famous writers. Maxim Gorky, Leo Tolstoy, Anton Chekhov. There are many writers. A lot of writers are there. Anton Chekhov and Maxim Gorky, Leo Tolstoy, all these writers, through their writings, through their novels, through their, we can say, literature, they described the plight, the sufferings of the workers and farmers in the country. People began to hear and they began to read these books written by the great writers. It was during this time you have heard about the Marxist ideologies. This Marxist ideology spread in Russia. It influenced the farmers. Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, they formed a Marxist ideology. And they spread this Marxist ideology there. And this Marxist ideology is influenced the people of Russia. This ideology put forward the supremacy of the workers or farmers instead of the supremacy of the capitalists. As the Marxist ideology put forward the idea of the rule, administration of the workers or supremacy of the workers instead of the capitalists, it influenced the Marxist ideology. The Marxist ideology influenced the people. And we can see, under the influence of the Marxist ideology, we can see that labor organizations formed in Russia. Many organizations which support farmers and workers formed in Russia. It was during this time Social Democratic Workers Party. You have heard about Social Democratic Workers Party. Social Democratic Workers Party was formed in Russia. Social Democratic Workers Party followed, inspired from the ideologies of Karl Marx, or we can say Marxist ideology. Later on, the Social Democratic Labour Party was split into two. One was Mensheviks. Second one was Bolshevik. So this Social Democratic Workers Party, which was formed in Russia, was later on split into two, Mensheviks and Bolsheviks. Mensheviks were the minority, they were minority, whereas Bolsheviks were majority. Mensheviks were led by Alexander Kerensky. You have heard about Alexander Kerensky. I think you have heard about Alexander Kerensky. Alexander Kerensky led Alexander Kerensky. Bolsheviks were led by, we can say, Lenin and Trotsky. Lenin and Trotsky. We can see thus Social Democratic Labour Party, which was formed in Russia, later on it was split into two. One is Menshevik, second one Bolshevik. Mensheviks were minority, whereas Bolsheviks were majority. Mensheviks were led by Alexander Kerensky, whereas Bolsheviks were led by Lenin and Trotsky. I think you have understood it. So this party was split into two. It was during this time, in 1905. In 1905, you can see, in 1905. In 1905, what happened? There was a war. There was a war with Japan. In the war with Japan, Russia was defeated by Japan. It's one of the smallest Asian country which defeated Russia in 1905. It raised protest against the Tsars. The workers of Russia, they assembled together and they marched to the Petrograd. They conducted a march in Petrograd. Protest against the Tsar's autocratic rule increased. and the workers in Russia, they conducted a march. Hundreds of workers participated in the march, demanding more political rights. And we can see that economic reforms, demanding more political rights and economic reforms. They conducted a march in Petrograd. Hundreds of workers participated in it. Soldiers, the police fired this march. Hundreds of the farmers, workers killed. This event is known as Bloody Sunday. This event is known as what? Bloody Sunday. Hundreds of workers were killed in the Tsar's police, soldiers. They killed these workers, shot and killed these workers. Hundreds of people were killed. This event is known as Bloody Sunday. It strengthened the workers and the peasants or farmers to conduct more and more protests in the country. For strengthening the protests, they formed Soviets. They formed the Soviets. Soviets were formed. It were the small groups formed in the country, groups of workers or farmers in the country. Soviets were formed. They strengthened the protest against the Tsar's rule during this period. And Tsars, they feared the protest. They decided to form a legislative assembly. Thus they formed Duma. They formed Duma, the legislative assembly of Russia. Tsar Nicholas II formed Duma, which is known as the legislative assembly of Russia, to defend the strengthening protest against the Russia's Tsar's rule, the rule of Tsars, to alleviate, to decrease the protest against the Tsar Nicholas II, the Tsar. They formed what? A legislative assembly named Duma. It was during this time we can see that in 1914, First World War started. When the First World War started, without the consent of Duma, Tsar Nicholas II decided to participate in the First World War, 1914 First World War. Decided to participate in the First World War. Many soldiers were killed in the First World War. It raised many protests in Russia. There was a shortage of the foods. People marched, especially women marched to Petrograd, demanding foods. A lot of women, thousands of women marched to Petrograd, demanding what? Food. At the first, the army or the soldiers turned against these people. But later on, when a number of soldiers were killed in the First World War, soldiers also joined with the people. We can see that the soldiers, Tsar soldiers, they also joined with whom? With these protesters. The people who conducted the strike, they also participated in it. which led to the success of the revolution. Success of the revolution. This revolution is known as February Revolution in the history. In Russian history, we can see it is February Revolution. Through this February Revolution, Sir Nicholas II was dethroned. He was sent away from his throne. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് അധികാരം നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടു. നിക്കോളാസ് രണ്ടാമന് അധികാരം നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടു. And an interim government, or we can say a government was formed. A provincial government was formed. Under the leadership of the Menshevik leader. You have heard the Menshevik leader. Who is it? Alexander Kerensky. Alexander Kerensky. Under the leadership of Alexander Kerensky, a new government came into power in Russia. It was the end of the February Revolution. You know about Russian calendar, which is a few days back than the world calendar. Actually, this revolution took place in March, but the revolution is known as February Revolution. The result of the February Revolution was that there was the end of the Tsar's rule, the autocratic rule of the Tsars ended. A new government came into power. It was led by Alexander Kerensky, the Menshevik leader. Okay, let us conclude the class. We can continue this Russian Revolution tomorrow. Okay, thank you all of you.